Hey there, lifter uppers. I'm Deb Krier, the co host of Cancer and Comedy, where our mission is to heal cancer impacted people through hope and humor, something we like to call turning the grim into a grin. Well, we are having our New Year's celebration. And so we want to talk about that today on Cancer and Comedy. And we're going to talk about planning in pencil, cancer patient's guide to the new year. So now here is the host of Cancer and Comedy, Dr. Brad Miller.
Hey, Deb, glad to be with you and all our lifter uppers as we embark on this new year of 2026. And we're going to be talking about how to kind of approach that and to plan it from a perspective of someone who's coping with cancer or other bad things in their life, other adversities. And we're going to do that. One of the things we like to say here is we like to develop a community of people who are like-minded that basically are taking an approach that I'm not done yet with living. I'm not done yet with living. I may have had this bad thing happen to me, but I'm going to live my life to the fullest. And we like to call that moving from the grim of cancer or things like that to the grin of a fulfilled life, no matter what stage in life you're at. And so we hope that people will get connected to us at our community here at Cancer and Comedy. You just go to cancerandcomedy.com/follow. Hey, Deb, how about a couple of New Year's-oriented jokes? You ready for those?
I am ready. I'm ready.
Well, my doctor said I should make a New Year's resolution to reduce stress. So I decided to stop opening his bills until February.
I know that feeling. Yep. Can we pick several years in advance?
There you go. There you go. One more that, they say to write down your goals for the new year. And so on my goals, I wrote just one thing: survive. And I think it's pretty ambitious enough, don't you think? So
It's very ambitious, but we're going to do it.
there you go. There you go.
I love it. Well, following our conversation, we're going to have, sorry folks, another one of Dr. Brad's bad jokes of the day. But then, of course, we have our very serious and very important Faith It or Break It segment. Well, as we've said, we would love for you to be part of our Cancer and Comedy community, where together we crush cancer with a message of how to cope with hope and humor. Please follow Cancer and Comedy at cancerandcomedy.com/follow.
Well, Deb, today we're going to talk a little bit about kind of how to plan and to deal with the new year. We're recording this actually on New Year's Eve and getting ready for the new year to happen. A lot of people talk about resolutions and planning and goal setting and things like that. And we were talking about how for people dealing with cancer and things like this, things change dramatically from day to day even and from moment to moment. And you just can't quite know what's exactly going to happen. And I had a kind of a illustration of that in my life, kind of a weird, wacky story that happened just yesterday, where things happen on a dime and you don't know what to do. So, but the story is just simply I'm 67 years old. My mother is 88. She had a birthday recently, but she decided she really wanted to go to a movie theater to see a movie. She's a big Neil Diamond fan. There's a movie out now called Song Sung Blue. She really wanted to go to the movie theater to see that for the first time since pre-COVID days. So I said, okay, Mom, I'll take you. And we went to the movie theater and and she's in a wheelchair. My mom is in a wheelchair. And for the most part, get the movie theater place is packed out, including all the wheelchair areas. So we had to sort that out. She almost got in a fight with another person in a rolling, in a roller thing. And so that was good to see two 80-year-olds getting a fight over a place there at a movie theater. But that was fun. And then, no, that wasn't too bad. But we got that worked out. Saw the movie. It was great. Going out of the movie theater, though, of course, my mom wanted to get popcorn and pop and that kind of stuff. And as we're leaving, she wants me to, of course, clean up my mess that supposedly I had made, because even though she had popcorn like I did, popcorn and Coke, pops, soft drink and that kind of thing. And I'm trying to manage pushing her out in a wheelchair and handling these bags of popcorn and soft drinks all at one time and kind of pushing it with my legs and things like that. Stop at the big trash barrel they have at the top of the ramp that goes out of the theater. And of course, I drop one of the one of the cups of soft drink. It goes everywhere. I lean over to pick it up, throw it in there. All of a sudden, I see my mom heading down the ramp of the going into out the door, and she's going at a lightning speed. And I go, "Oh man!" I go chase after her. I fall on my face. My phone goes everywhere. My hat everywhere. I bang my knee pretty hard. She goes right through the doorway, right through a bunch of people, and bangs it, puts her feet out, and stops her fall. She crashes into the wall on the other side of the theater, and I run. Are you okay, mom? And then about that time, my alarm thing goes off on my Apple Watch. My Apple Watch has the fall thing. I got to punch that daggone thing. It was quite the scene, but she was okay. I'm the one who got hurt a little bit and banged my knee up, but she kind of laughed it off. I kind of laughed it off too. But just to look up and see my mom going full speed down in this wheelchair down the ramp with all these people around. It was just like, it just shows you how things change on a dime, don't they? They can change very quickly. And because it could have been bad. She could have broke her leg or any number of things. I would have been in trouble. I probably already am in trouble for life the way it is, but, it was kind of funny in the moment. But things change quickly. And so it is with folks dealing with cancer and things of that nature. Everything seems to be going along okay, and then you have something happen, but the point I want to make with you is you can't plan in exactly the same way that you used to. You may have had a plan, like for the year to whatever it is, to get a raise or to lose weight or to, read 10 books or whatever it would be. But you can't always set goals and this type of thing in the same way. And so that's one of the reasons we titled this episode, Planning in Pencil, A Cancer Patient's Guide to the New Year. So just give me some of your thoughts about this. So I kind of gave you my silly story there about what happened in real life that impacts things because if she'd broken her leg or whatever, it would have been a bad scene. We'd have to deal with that. But what's your thoughts on this? What are some of the ways that people can maybe not so much be the goal-setting thing, the resolution thing, but maybe one way of planning your life as you enter a new year for cancer patients? Give
Well,
me your
you definitely touched on the fact that we lose control. And whether
yeah,
it's, mom wheeling off down the thing, or we've got cancer and we don't know what the heck is going on, and we don't like that. We like to have things that we have planned. And I think one of the things, about New Year's resolutions is they
hmm,
tend to be these grandiose things. I'm going to lose 100 pounds. I'm going to stop smoking. And I think what we need to remember at this time is we do need to plan. We need to, not just give in because, like I said, we want to get back something under control, but we need to make the things something that's doable. Maybe it's get through each day. Maybe it's finish treatment. Whatever it is, make your New Year's resolutions, so to speak, something that is achievable and celebrate the things that are kind of the small victories.
right. Absolutely. And I think that maybe, Deb, see what you think about this, kind of redefining or reframing how we look at goals and things of this nature. So instead of looking at kind of those milestone markers, lose weight, money, whatever it would be, to find moments or find intentions that are good, find moments of joy, find moments of relaxation, find moments where your pain has been dealt with, things like this. Instead of rigid goals, seek to have enjoyable moments. So you may not run a marathon by June, but you may be able to spend some quality time with some family, or you may be able to enjoy a good book, something like this, along this line. Things that bring you joy. Reframing is one way of looking at it. Yeah.
Right. And in the title, we talk about pencil, right?
Right.
I think it's all about we have to be flexible. Well, this didn't work. So now what are we going to do? And it's that way no matter what in life, right? When we set things that are rigid and then it doesn't work out, we get very upset.
Yeah.
And that's never going to work. And so what are we going to do to make sure that we can be flexible? Life is going to throw us curves no matter what. And so, don't write things in ink. Don't carve them in stone. Put them in pencil.
Yeah.
and that's okay. You can erase it, you can move it, you can rewrite it, whatever it is, but it's all about what is gonna work for you and try to reduce the stress as much as you possibly can.
I think one way of doing that is to think in terms of a placeholder type of mentality rather than an ink. Instead of writing in ink and whatever, placeholder means that this is what I would love to do. For instance, you plan around Christmas and birthdays and other family celebrations or vacations and things like that because you do have to do some planning. But when you have cancer deal with these type of things, maybe you can think of those in terms of placeholders, that things you'd love to do. And if it works out, do them, but you may have to change your plans and kind of understand that your health and your body gets a vote in this deal,
Right,
and that so hold your plans kind of loosely, as you say, put them in pencil, not in pen. So yeah,
right. Yeah. And I think it's very important to have the long-term and the short-term goals.
yeah,
We've talked before about, when you were first diagnosed, some of your goals are to see your granddaughters grow up,
that's right,
right?
that's right,
And so, this year it might be, obviously we do have the long term, want to see them get married, want to see them, all of those things. But, you also have the short-term things. Have them come visit over Easter
right,
or,
right,
whatever it is. And, and it's funny, I had somebody challenge me last year when I was kinda on this same subject because I said, we were doing business planning, and it was, "What are your long-term goals?" 5 years, 10 years. And I said, "It's hard. It's really hard to do that when I don't know what's gonna happen next week, let alone
right.
5 years and 10 years." And they kinda took me to task and said I was manifesting that. And it was interesting because it's kind of one of those mixed things, right? We
Right.
wanna be realistic, but we also do need to be planning for the future. And so it was an interesting conversation that I had.
I think we might think about in terms of this whole topic here with some nuance to it. What I mean by that is, I think there's a slight difference between vision and mission
Right.
and goal setting. So like I have the vision of seeing my granddaughters get married and graduate high school and things like that. They're young right now, and that's part of what keeps me going in my cancer situation. So my mission then is to create my life with my health and my mental health and my focus to get that done. And the goals kind of along the way are kind of the signpost along the way. So in other words, there's different aspects of this. And so you're right. The short term, my long term vision is to be with my granddaughters when they graduate high school, get married, whatever they do 20 years from now. And I'll have to be in my late 80s in order to do that. So we'll see but the realistic since
You're gonna be there for their wedding. You're gonna be in charge of it. I know.
uh,
You're going to marry them.
well, that would be actually that's my vision. We'll see. But who knows what the reality is? And you have to deal with the kind of the reality right in front of you, as it were. Sometimes, if you send your mother crashing through a door, or go crashing through a movie theater, you might have to change your plans a little bit. But the idea here is to see things kind of in the appropriate light. Because if you don't meet a short term goal and you're devastated by it, then you've not done yourself or others any good at all. And I think maybe we may have talked about this before, um, but there's a paradox that comes out of the Vietnam War era, and it's called the Stockdale paradox. That I think we've talked about a little bit before, but basically, we're prisoners of war in the Hanoi Hilton, pilots and so on. There'd be some who said, I'll be home by Christmas, 3 months from now. And if they didn't make it, they were devastated. And the others said, I'll never make it, you know, and those two groups of folks had a hard time making it. Those who gave up immediately, and those who had kind of a more of a pie in the sky, kind of a unrealistic deal, But those who really made it, and Admiral Stockdale came up with this whole thinking, who was one of the prisoners of war there, and he said those who have this thinking of to face the brutal facts and still move forward in hope. Those are the ones who really make it. And I think it's what we're talking about here, to have an overriding hope, but you got to face your facts. You got to face the brutal facts and still choose then to move forward in hope. And I kind of think that's what we need to do here. Do you think humor plays any part in this here, what we're talking about here?
I think humor definitely plays a big part of it, and maybe it's in the goals that we're setting. I'm gonna put on pants today. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
get her done, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna make my doctor laugh.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, I think we need to do that. And maybe the goal is I am going to laugh more.
Mm.
That
Yeah.
might be the thing. And so I think we definitely want to make sure that humor is a big part of this because it is so very important.
One of the ways to look at it is to find what are the humorous things that we can anchor on. And this we can anchor on many things. We can anchor on friends or family or our faith or events, in our lives. But one of the things we can anchor on in our New Year planning is what are some of the things that do make us laugh or smile. It might be a TV show, it might be a comedian that we like, it might be a podcast we like to listen to. Any number of things, or what are our people, or telling the dumb dad jokes, whatever it would be. But those things that can understand that laughter is a part of it, kind of plan it into our lives is what I'm trying to say, because to plan for joy instead of just for pain, and that's what we can do. I love to hear that. Part of that, part of that, what people can do is in try to plan then for good days as well. Bad days are going to happen, but try to plan for good days and to celebrate. And when you do have a good day, to do something with it. That don't let your time just fizzle off. Do something with it. Make a phone call, write a letter, read a book, make a Facebook post or something like this where people can celebrate the good days. If you're having a good day, for some people, depending, chemotherapy and all kinds of other things happen. You have some really rough times, but you can have some better days as well, and to celebrate those.
Mhm. Right. Yeah. I mean, your goal might be, or your gratitude for the day, I guess I would say, is I didn't throw up today.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, and
No,
and
absolutely.
oh, yeah, I've got a new hairstyle, or whatever it is, and that comes back to humor, right? And making fun of the things. I remember long ago when my grandmother had cancer, she wore a wig and we
Mm.
called it Sally. I don't know why we gave it a name, but we were kids,
And
we
just
were
to be
like,
clear, that wasn't your grandmother's name, was it?
no, no,
No.
my grandma's name was Ruby.
Okay. Her wig was Sally, so there's 2 of them. It does, yeah, okay. Alright.
So, and she was forever and a day getting Sally on crooked.
Mm.
And, we'd go up and we'd, and straighten Sally out.
Yeah.
We just had a good time with it. And, I think that's one of the things is, if you're the family, the friends of someone who is going through this, how can you make them laugh?
Yeah.
And lighten that moment for them.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, let's just talk about a couple of other things here and kind of bring us around to what we may be able to encourage our listeners to do about. But I think one of the things that we can encourage our lifter ups to be about is, we hear things about when you get a diagnosis of cancer, the dread and the doom of, I'm going to die and that kind of stuff comes to us right away. And some people talk about, getting your bucket list, things that you got to get accomplished. You got to go skydiving, or you got to go travel to Europe or whatever it is, get her done. And I think there's maybe some place for that, but maybe we could talk about kind of an anti bucket list too, things that you can stop doing. You can stop, worrying about certain obligations, or stop worrying about certain expectations, that maybe drain your energy. And maybe cancer can be one way of saying this is an opportunity to say no to certain
Right.
things.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, get rid of the toxic people in your life.
Oh,
Stop
yeah.
watching the news 24 hours a day.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
All of those things, I think we do see a lot of people reprioritize things, whether it's their professional life, their friends, whatever it is. And, it's good for anybody to always be thinking about that, and of course, we do at the start of a new year, we start thinking about what's going on, but having a serious diagnosis really forces us into that. And I think it's okay to go into that and be thinking, "Okay, what do I wanna do? Who do I want in my life?
Yeah.
Who do I not want in my life?" Things like that.
I think it's also just kind of goes along the line of instead of thinking about accomplishments and things like this, think about relationships.
Mhm.
Think about what fills you up, not what drains you. Trying to think about obligation, think about what opportunities, things of that nature. And I think it's reframing, the goal setting type of thing. We talk about setting our goals in pencil, but I think setting goals that are some people might call them enough goals. That like I did this today and that's enough. I rested enough. If I need to get up and get going, or maybe I need to take a rest. That kind of
Mhm.
thing.
Right,
And enough is enough. What do you
right.
think about that?
Well, that's so true, and I think we also need to remember that nobody else gets to determine that.
Yeah. Right.
And I think that's something that is a challenge, because we always want to be pleasing other people, be doing whatever, and maybe it's time to say, "No, no, no, no. I need to nap. You're going to let me nap. Go away." Whatever it is,
Yeah.
so maybe it is a time to be setting some of those boundaries, and just making sure that we're going forward the way we want in a positive way. It's okay to be saying no, but be saying it in a positive way.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, you don't need to explain yourself. I tell people no is a full sentence.
Yeah. No, enough are good. Is enough. Well, let's bring it around to this, and maybe you can kind of put a bow on this discussion here, Deb. By this, let's be a word of encouragement to that person who's dealing with cancer or to some other adversity in life. So, what would be your word of New Year's encouragement to someone who's kind of a little bit flailing a little bit right now? What would be your word to that
Mhm.
person?
You can do it, and so I guess if I had to do just one word, resilient would be the word, steady. Now here's a funny one, curious.
Hmm. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome.
What about
Well,
you?
I would just share it with people to I like to call it your credo. Kind of write down what you kind of believe about yourself. Not so much goals so much, but just about who you are and what you're all about. A short sentence or two to write that down. And one of the things that I do is I have my cancer credo. I have it
Right. Oh, yes, yes.
right.
Mhm,
I keep it right by my desk here.
mhm.
And I just want to read it. Maybe they can be way to bring our conversation to close today, maybe encouragement to people. And so, but my point is to kind of sort through these things we talked about here today, then write something down. Not so much a goal setting thing, but a statement of who you are. So here's what I wrote down a couple years ago when I first was diagnosed with cancer, and I call it my cancer coping credo. I will not let cancer define me. I will leverage cancer to refine my life to the better in my relationships and to drive me forward in my remaining days to fulfill the mission of sharing a message of healing through hope and humor and teaching the biblical message that a cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones.
I love that. Perfect, and that's a great way to end our discussion.